Hey friends, it's Mike. I received a number of inquiries asking if my presentation from the Flatoberfest conference, which was held on October 24th in Greenville, South Carolina, is available online. What follows is my segment from the live stream. I plan on uploading the full slide presentation with a voiceover within the next couple of weeks. I would like to thank Karen B. for pulling the event together. It was a major success with almost 400 people attending the conference. I had a wonderful time, and it was a pleasure meeting everyone and having the opportunity to chat about a wide range of topics. The link to the full stream is in the description box below, so you can take a listen to the other speakers who did a wonderful job. Thanks for listening.
All right, we're going to go on to our next speaker, and the next speaker is someone that I have a very near and dear affection for, because I found his channel before I found Flat Earth, and my mind was continually blown. I learned about all kinds of cool stuff from the stage of Quay Radio Hour. I loved it. And so now, 5 years later, I can't even believe it. I have set up an event, and now I have Mr. Mike Williams here to do a presentation for you guys, and I'm super excited. So now, Mike Williams from the stage of Quay Radio Hour, take it away.
We should give Karen a round of applause for putting us together. And it's good to see so many people without masks.
That's right, man.
Yeah. It's very nice. My presentation is going to be probably a little different from a flat earth or a geocentric perspective. I'm going to start there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just march forward, and I'm going to get into the cosmic egg theory, which is Martin Kenny has brought to the forefront, and Martin and I did a couple of shows on that. There was a question before about what's beyond the ice wall, and I believe the cosmic egg theory could explain what is beyond our wall. Then I'm going to talk about why the planet Saturn is so important, and why do the controllers worship Saturn. We'll talk about Martin's cosmic clock. It's very important, and it refers to the great year, and I'll cover that. I'm going to talk about Earth's toroidal field. I'm going to get into the philosophy and the spiritual aspects of the controllers, their belief system, and why they say and do what they say and do. Going to cover some numbers. I'm going to get into the Mass, which is a ritual. We're going to end with my last chart, which is going to talk about signs and symbols and how signs and symbols rule the world. It's not words or laws, and that's why it's so important for us to understand the signs and symbols, because that allows us to begin to decode this reality. Okay, so, my first slide is up. Okay, so, our reality is completely controlled from cradle to grave. A lot of people don't like to hear that. They like to think that there are aspects of it that aren't, but for the things that really matter, is control. And that's why I titled the presentation, Anything Worth Knowing is a Lie. So we are told our history is true, and a lot of information has come out over the last 2 years or so. Mud flood being a big one. Channels like John Levy going back and taking a look at buildings and architecture that really shouldn't be there, but they are. We are told our civilization is the most advanced. Many of us in this room who are looking into alternative research realize that that's not true.
That's not true.
We are told we have the best education system, we have the best medical system, that government is for the people, war brings freedom and democracy. We're told that vaccines are safe, GMO and processed food is safe. We're told that fluoride is safe because they care about our teeth. They don't care about anything else in our life, but they care about our teeth. They want to keep us safe, and we are free. Okay, so I know we're all familiar with all of these little narratives that they throw out there every single day. And it's part of the brainwashing, it's part of the indoctrination. Jason talked before about social engineering. They social engineer every single day, every single hour, every single minute. We are constantly bombarded with mind control and indoctrination. Why knowing the truth is important. Many times, when we talk about the geocentric model of flat Earth, the question is asked, who cares? Why is it important? And some people stumble over that, especially when you first get into understanding flat Earth. So there's a song from George Harrison's last album, Brainwashed. And you can see George titled his album Brainwashed. He's telling us something. And he's got a television set there. And he's got 5 mannequins. I'll leave that for you. It's another discussion. You thought there were 4 Beatles? Maybe not. So the refrain of the song says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And it's a play on Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So Alice says to the cat, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? And the cat says, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat. So long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. Oh, you're sure to do that if you only walk long enough. So just keep that in mind. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I know everybody in this room, I'm hoping, wants to know where you're going. Nobody wants to walk around lost. And this is what the controllers do. They put us in a place filled with lies and deception to keep us lost. And when you're lost, you're controllable. And really, I look at that as the bottom line. So I got into flat Earth, and I prefer to use geocentrism. Flat Earth is a somewhat polarizing term. It's like using chemtrails when we can use geoengineering. I became aware of the flat Earth theory in 2015. I was watching Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues, and it just piqued my interest. Initially, like everybody else probably in this room, I thought it was just craziness. What am I watching this for? The Earth is not flat. The Earth is a globe. It's a ball. Then I had this inner voice that kept whispering to me and saying, Mike, look into it. Just stick with it. Look into it. So I have my radio show. I do a podcast, and back in the day, Mark was the first guest I had on the show. I interviewed Eric DeBay, Jaron, David Weiss has been on a couple of times, and I had Patricia on the show. And I was on Patricia's show as well. As I was going through the process of understanding geocentrism, what I realized is what I did not know about heliocentrism. I was indoctrinated. I thought I knew, but once I started looking into the research and I started doing the legwork, I realized I don't know what I should know about it. So I continued researching. And by continuing the research, I concluded that our world is a stationary plane. So on the left, we have the flat Earth depiction, and to the right, we have the UN logo. Many of you have probably seen these 2 images. So what the controllers do is they hide the truth in plain sight. It's encoded. So it's up to us to decode it, which means many times we have to get out of our comfort zones. And we have to dive into...
Yeah, we need a little more audio.
Okay. And we have to dive into topics that we're not comfortable with. And we have to check them out and do the due diligence. So it just so happens that the UN logo, you can see, it's broken into pieces. And up above, if you can see the graphic, it has 33 pieces to it. Okay? And most of us are familiar with the 33rd degrees of Freemasonry, Scottish Rite, And so again, it's hidden in plain sight, and I'm going to get into more detail about the occultism and the spiritual belief system and the philosophies of the controllers. So after I looked at flat Earth and I concluded that yes, it is a stationary plane, I thought to myself, now what? Where do I go from here? Is that it? Because we would hear the elevator speech all the time, would say it's flat and there's a dome. It's flat, it's a dome. And I thought, okay, it's got to be more than that. It's okay to know that, but what are the next steps? So a couple of years ago, I stumbled upon Martin Kenny. And Martin is a student of syncretism. And syncretism is the combining of different beliefs while blending practices of various schools of thought. So in Martin's work, he went back, he looked at the Egyptian lore, he went back to the Norse, the Hindus, the Mayans, the Incas, the Chinese, the Celtics, the Hebrews, etc. And all of these ancient cultures said that the earth is at the center of the universe. So I'm going to give you the summary version of this because it can get very, very involved. But just follow. Mother Earth gives birth to concentric rings or domains. This is what is referred to as the expanding universe in mainstream science. So in mainstream science, and NASA tells you that the universe is expanding, what they're actually referring to, based upon the cosmic egg theory, is Earth at the center gives birth. And when she gives birth, it's a new sun. And with that new sun comes new land and new water. And the other rings move out. That's the expansion. At the center of the earth are the Polarians. They are the stewards. They are there for all time. They don't go anywhere. They are the keepers of Mother Earth. That's where we get Polaris, the Pole Star, North Star, pole positions, etc. You can see on the graphic in the center, I have the box pointing to the middle of the earth. The first created ring, the current outer ring, was Hyperborea. And Saturn was and is the first sun birthed by Mother Earth. And Jupiter became the first moon. And the moon is created by the sun. The second created ring was Lemuria, where Mars is the sun and Venus is the moon. The third created ring is our ring. Our ring is Atlantis. Apollo is the sun and Artemis is the moon. And just know that Artemis was the twin sister of Apollo. So when I mentioned that the sun, once it leaves the inner ring and moves outward, creates or gives birth to a moon, you can see here where mainstream science is telling us that Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. The fourth ring is the Aryan ring, and that's the current inner ring, where Mercury is the sun. And when you're in the inner ring, which is a ring right outside of the Polarian domain, there is no moon. And what does NASA and what does science tell us about Mercury? It has no moon. So to give you an example of how the inner ring works, when the sun is birthed for that particular ring, it is considered androgynous. It is both a sun and a moon. And upon completion of a great year, which is 24,000 years in Martin's model, mainstream science and NASA will tell you that that number is 25,772. We'll get into that a little bit, why it's 24,000 years from Martin's perspective. A new sun emerges with a new ring, but there is no moon. This is what I was talking about before with Mercury. The sun is both. It is a sun and a moon, sometimes referred to as the smoky god. After a great year completes the 24,000-year cycle, Earth births another new ring, pushing the previous inner ring outward. And when that happens, the land masses divide. So remember when we were back in school, they would talk about Pangea. And he told us that Pangea was one landmass, and then it broke apart. With the cosmic egg theory, perhaps the landmass broke apart because Earth is constantly moving out from the center. And when that happens, the land masses are going to reconfigure. So once the ring leaves the inner domain, the sun creates and births the moon. I just mentioned that before. Saturn was the first sun, and Jupiter the first moon. So this is going to clue us into why the controllers, why they worship Saturn. Because it was the firstborn sun. It is the first sun of Earth. So in the beginning, there was Saturn, the first sun. So in the center graphic, what I'm showing you is the arrow, yellow arrow pointing outward. At one time, when Saturn came out from Polaris, it came out to the first ring. And then over time, the Hyperborean ring moved out because Lemuria was birthed, Atlantis was birthed, the Aryan ring was birthed, and Saturn is the sun in the outer ring. And Jupiter, again, is the moon. And you can see here, in case anybody's wondering about the images, why is he using NASA images? I don't know if you could read the bottom, but I said, fake NASA CGI used for illustrative purposes. Now, we know that Saturn is the sixth quote-unquote planet. 6 equals Saturn. 6 is the number associated with Luciferian and Satan worship, Saturn worship. NASA tells us that at the north pole of Saturn, there's a hexagon, which is a 6-sided polygon. Most of us have probably seen this image. A 6-sided hexagon in 3 dimensions is a cube. And let me see if I can point it out here to make it easy for those that can't see it. Sometimes it's a little difficult, so I'll step away from the microphone for a moment. Over here. Can't see it? Okay.
Can you move the podium to the side?
No, the podium is unfortunately
Very heavy.
it's heavy. That's pretty much fixed. So just take my word for it. The hexagon or the 6-sided polygon, when you draw lines connecting each corner of the polygon, becomes a 3-dimensional cube. And then on the chart, you probably can't see that either. To the right of that, I actually show a die showing the cube. And then to the right of that, you see an image, a black cube of Saturn. So we have a black cube in Australia, we have a black cube in Denmark, we have a black cube in Manhattan, and we have a black cube in Santa Ana, and there are black cubes in other places across the world. Why the black cube? Because the black cube is the hexagon at the north pole of Saturn. So we'll get a little deeper into this. Carbon 6, atomic number 6, and the cube. Carbon is the element with atomic number 6 on the periodic table with the symbol C. This nonmetallic element is the key to the chemistry of living organisms. Carbon is the basis for organic chemistry as it occurs in all living organisms. So that six-sided polygon, which becomes the cube, is also representative of carbon 6, which is a key element to life. 99% of the mass of the human body is made up of 6 elements: 65% oxygen, 19% carbon, 10% hydrogen, 3% nitrogen, 2% calcium, and 1% phosphorus. Okay? So what do we have? We have Saturn with the hexagon at the North Pole. We have the hexagon becoming a cube. The cube is also representative of carbon, which is instrumental to life. I'm going to move a little bit now to the cosmic clock, which is what Martin has presented. In fact, on my YouTube channel, I did a 3.5-hour show with Martin, which really was Martin presenting his work for 3.5 hours. I just sat there for 3.5 hours and learned. I was kind of the one-man audience at the time. So the cosmic clock really refers to a 24,000-year cycle, which is called the Great Year. And after each great year, as I mentioned, a new sun is birthed and a new ring is formed. The zodiac and the ages are contained within the great year, the 24,000 years. So we all know what the zodiac is. The ages would be the Iron Age, or what is referred to as the Kali Yuga, the Bronze Age, the Silver, and the Gold, to use the Greek terminology. Our ring, the Atlantean ring, departed the Piscean Age and entered the age of Aquarius in 2012. This is what all that Mayan calendar hoopla was all about. Remember end times and all this? What the media was communicating out, it was the end of the Piscean Age and the beginning of the age of Aquarius. The controllers have been preparing for the age of Aquarius for decades. Their primary push began in the 1960s with what is referred to as the Aquarian conspiracy. Okay, so they have been ramping it up for 60 years. The Atlantean ring is also transitioning out of the Iron Age and into the Bronze. So you can see the arrow I have on your right, my left, showing where we are at right now. And we are at the cusp of departing the Iron Age and entering into the Bronze. This is why we have so much turmoil right now. Because one age is leaving and the new age is coming in. And those who benefited in the old age are not just going to roll over. But ultimately what will happen is the new age, the Bronze Age, will get its traction and the pendulum is on the upswing. Might not be in our lifetimes, folks. The transition period, based on what I can tell, could be a very long time, hundreds of years. But this is what's happening right now. We are in a very, very important and very exciting period in time that we are witnessing and experiencing. This is how I feel about it. On December 21st, 2020, we have the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. The first sun and the first moon are going to be in conjunction. And this is why we have what's going on today with the mask ritual, the social distancing. I'll get into that in a little bit. This is what's going on. We are in the midst of a big ritual. And the celestial bodies and astrology are very, very important to the controls. Very, very important. So what does this mean? It means a time of major change and transformation is taking place. This is why we keep reading articles like from the World Economic Forum titled The Great Reset. Why is it called the Great Reset? And we see this term now, it's being used over and over and over again in the media, the Great Reset. We're in for big change. Very, very big change. I talked about this, about Pangea. As the clock ticks, the cosmic clock, 24,000-year clock that Martin put together, the Earth expands. And that's the expanding universe. Let's talk a little bit about the electromagnetic toroidal fields around each one of the domains, around Earth. Each ring or domain is enclosed by an electromagnetic toroidal field, which is referred to as the dome in flat Earth vernacular. And each one of these electromagnetic fields, or these domes, separates each domain so that we can't interfere with each other. We just can't go wandering off into Lemuria. They can't come wandering off into here. We can't wander off into the inner ring, at least not at this time. I think somebody asked a question about the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis, and Aurora Australis. Well, the Northern Lights and the Southern Lights, it is theorized based upon the cosmic gate theory that what you're seeing is the electromagnetic field. So when we go down to Antarctica and we see the Southern Lights, we're seeing the hue from the electromagnetic field. When we go north up to the North Pole, we see the Northern Lights. That is the hue of the dome, the electromagnetic field, the dome. Okay, that's what the theory posits. So, from 1945 to 1963, the United States conducted an extensive campaign of atmospheric nuclear tests. We have to ask ourselves, what were they doing? What were they doing? Exploding atomic weapons in the atmosphere. My guess is, and it is a guess, trying to see if they can punch a hole in the electromagnetic field. They wanted to see if they can get through it. Then there was an article published by the University of Colorado in Boulder, November 26, 2014, and they said that they discovered an invisible shield some 7,200 miles above Earth. That's the dome. So going back to what I said earlier, this is where they tell you the truth. It's revelation of the method, but it is encoded. And it's up to us to continue to look into this. Not just geocentrism, but everything in reality. Question everything. Because what you're going to find is that the truth is hidden in plain sight. You just have to know how to start to break down their lies and to decode what it is that they're telling us. Okay, so here's one that's probably going to throw some people for a loop. When Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about the oblate spheroid, many in the flat Earth community ridicule him. But here's the thing. What if what he's talking about, because like I said, they hide the truth in plain sight, is what does Earth look like with its toroidal field? You can see on the diagram here, I drew the blue line. That's the stationary Earth. And then there's the torus. And what does it look like? It looks like an oblate spheroid. So what we need to do, at least this is what I do, is I listen to these people. I listen to them speak. And I try to understand what is it they are trying to tell us. Because they are putting the truth out there. But it's masked. It's encoded. Okay, so what I did here, I did a little conversion chart. Heliocentrum terms and what they mean or possibly mean in geocentric terms. The Big Bang. Well, the Big Bang is the creation of the egg, the universe, by the Creator. The universe is our enclosed cosmic egg with Earth at the center. The multiverse are other cosmic eggs or other universes. The expanding universe is Earth birthing new rings and domains. What I just showed you from the cosmic clock slide. Pangea is the reconfiguring of land as the rings move and push outward. The Apollo missions, exploring the domain of Apollo, our sun, who rules this ring and this domain. That is what I believe the Apollo missions are referring to. They're referring to exploring our ring, our domain, where Apollo is the ruler, the sun, the giver of life in the Atlantean ring. Colonizing Mars, we keep hearing about that, right? They're going to colonize Mars. We're all going to go to Mars. Traveling to the Lemurian ring, where Mars is the sun. Probes to Saturn. Probing Hyperborea, the outer ring, where Saturn is the first sun. Aliens are beings inhabiting rings and domains outside our own. Extraterrestrial only means land that's outside of our ring. An extraterrestrial will be a being that lives in Lemuria, the Aryan ring, the Hyperborean ring. That would be an extraterrestrial or an alien. Outer space simply means space outside of our space, outside of our domain. That is what they are referring to. The Van Allen belts, I keep hearing about the Van Allen belts. The Van Allen belts are the toroidal field around each ring. They keep telling us, well, they were able to do it back in 1969, but now they can't do it anymore. They can't get past the Van Allen rings. The Van Allen belts, I should say. But the Van Allen belts is the electromagnetic field. The oblate spheroid I just showed you is Earth, the stationary plane, with its toroidal field. And then we have Trump. He created Space Force, and this would be missions and explorations to other domains, and it's possible via portals. Some people think portals are crazy, but there are others that believe when we have great conjunctions and other celestial movements, that it does indeed open up portals, and it does allow for travel between the rings. So many times you'll hear that we refer to mainstream science about space and the cosmos as scientism. And it's more than scientism, it's occultism. Mm-hmm. The people that rule the world, they're occultists. So you can see I have the diagram there with occultism right smack in the middle. Their occultism goes back to the ancient Egyptian mysteries. It includes, obviously, the esoteric, the Kabbalah, mysticism, astrology, ritual and magic, tarot, and numerology. They love numbers. And we're going to get into that a little bit when I talk about Pythagoras, who is, it all goes back to him. And I'll show you the second one. A great book to read, and it's a very dense book, is The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. A brilliant book about the esoteric, about the secret teachings, about the mysteries. And it's one of those books where you have to read it in bite-sized chunks because it's tremendous. But if you can get through it, you'll pick up a lot of information. Okay, so why do they say Earth is a globe? Why do they say Earth is a sphere? Why do they say Earth is round? Because in the mysteries, in occultism, the sphere is divine. That's why they tell us Earth is a globe. Because in their philosophy, in their spirituality, whether you disagree with it or not, is really not the point. This is how they think. This is how they operate. It's a sphere. So Pythagoras, this comes from Wikipedia, was credited with many mathematical and scientific discoveries, although Pythagoras wasn't a scientist. He was a philosopher, he was a mystic, and he was a student of the mysteries. So he was credited with many mathematical discoveries, including Earth being a sphere. So it goes back to Pythagoras. And by the way, one of the things we should know about Pythagoras is it's not really clear whether he really existed or not. That he actually just might be a personification that encapsulates the teachings or the philosophy of the rulers, of the ruling class, of the elites. Very similar to William Shakespeare, where many in the research community have concluded or have at least theorized that it was Francis Bacon and his merry band of men, who actually wrote the Shakespearean works. It wasn't William Shakespeare himself. Okay, so just keep that in mind. As I was doing the research on Pythagoras, it was really interesting to me that we really don't have any definitive yes or no whether he actually existed or not. It's very, very interesting. He also identified the morning and evening stars as the planet Venus. Morning star, Venus. Anybody watch the television series Lucifer? Lucifer Morning Star? Pythagoras had a major impact on scientists such as Copernicus, Kepler, and Newton. And what they don't mention here is Galileo. So what this tells us is that if Pythagoras was a student of the mysteries, if he was a philosopher, and he was a mystic, then that's not what we would normally refer to as science. And what they did was they took occultism and they cloaked it in science. They disguised it as science. That's what they've done. So occult knowledge would include mysteries, philosophy, the esoteric, mysticism, math and numbers. They love math and numbers. Pythagoras was huge into math. This is why when we do the research in Flat Earth, we see all these crazy mathematical equations. We see Albert Einstein in front of 5 chalkboards writing all these mathematical equations. Pythagoreanism is a philosophical school and religious brotherhood. Pythagorean thought was dominated by mathematics, but it was also profoundly mystical. The fundamental realities of the world are structural and mathematical. This is the fundamentals, the basis or the features of Pythagoreanism. The study of mathematics is the indispensable basis for all intellectual and spiritual progress. Knowledge or understanding is inherently mystical and can be attained only by the elite, by the adept, by the initiate. Members of the order shall observe a strict loyalty and secrecy. In Pythagorean geometry, the tetrad, which is, it's going to be hard to see here, but I have a pyramid at the bottom of the slide, symbolizes the geometric, arithmetic, and musical ratios that are the foundation on which the entire universe is built. So, when we see these celebrities and these musicians walking around doing this all the time, I believe what they're referring to is the tetrad. Because it symbolizes, and I'll read it again, the geometric, arithmetic, and musical ratios that are the foundation on which the entire universe is built. And within that pyramid, when you connect the 10 dots, in the center, there's a hexagon, the cube, Saturn, carbon. That's why I believe they keep flashing the pyramid. They're communicating to us what Saturn represents. It's the first sun, it's life, and so on. Now, folks, I'm not saying I agree with them, okay? But it's important to understand how they present their material.
Right.
How they do it. This chart, as with the previous one, I should have given credit to a good friend of mine, Michael Joseph, who has done wonderful work in the occult. You see the Masonic compass and square. Everybody's familiar with this. With the G in the middle, God, gatekeeper, grand architect, pick one. The way the elites think, at the top, the compass, it draws what? Circles and curved lines. And I mentioned earlier that circles and spheres are considered divine. And by the way, that compass is separated by 47 degrees. 4 plus 7 is 11, a master number in the occult and Freemasonry. The square is for flat surfaces. So the square is representative of the earth plane, square, stationary. The compass, because again it draws circles, represents the higher realms, the spiritual realms. As above, so below. When they believe that here on earth, when we incarnate into this existence, into this reality, into this world, into this realm, it's profane. And there's work that we have to do to elevate our consciousness so that we are enlightened and illuminated. So in their minds, all the stuff that's going on in the world, everything that they're taking us through, all of this duality, all of this pain is part of that process. Okay? Again, I'm not saying I agree with it. I would choose a very different approach, trust me. But this is how they think. Now, before we get to the Great Conjunction on the winter solstice, December 21st of 2020, there was a total solar eclipse on December 14th, 2020, 7 days prior to December 21st, the winter solstice. What does a total solar eclipse mean to the occultist? Solar eclipses mark new beginnings. It's the last eclipse of 2020. It's going to be visible from Chile and some parts of Argentina in the afternoon. Some regions in southern South America, Southwest Africa, and Antarctica will see a partial solar eclipse if weather permits. Many who follow astrology, occultism, mysticism will tell us that total solar eclipses bring intense energy and it can open portals. And I believe that this is possibly table setting for the Great Conjunction on December 21st, 2020. Right? So now we can start to understand a little bit more when we take a look at, we understand the cosmic egg theory, the worship of Saturn and what it means. So Saturn, the first sun, and Jupiter, the first moon. Okay, bouncing around here. Hold on 1 second. Get there. All right. So the Great Conjunction, for those that don't know, a conjunction is an occurrence together in time or space. Concurrence, it's a conjunction of events. They come together. Very, very close proximity. The apparent meeting or passing of two or more celestial bodies in the same degree of the zodiac. A configuration in which two celestial bodies have their least apparent separation. So when I was pulling this together, I came across something very interesting. Jupiter and Saturn will form a conjunction on December 21st, 2020, in the first degree of Aquarius. Age of Aquarius. You want to know why social distancing is 6 feet? Saturn. Saturn's the sixth planet. When you do Pythagorean numerology on the term social distancing, it regroups, reduces to 6. It's all ritual based. That's where they get this stuff. Anybody ever ask themselves, why is it 6 feet? Why is it not 5 feet, 7 feet? Why is it not 10 feet? Everything they do is by design. Everything. This is something I found very interesting. And I'll explain the number 777, 777, and the number 10, which is considered in numerology to be the number of completion. So when I looked up the Great Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, this is what it said. A Great Conjunction is a conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Saturn. Great conjunctions occur regularly every 19.6 years on average due to the combined effect of Jupiter's approximately 11.86-year orbital period and Saturn's 29.5-year orbital period. The next Great Conjunction will occur on the 21st of December 2020. So I looked at the numbers. I like to play with numbers. And so when I looked at the 19.6, the numerology on that is 7. That's interesting. And then when I looked at the 29.5, which is the orbital period for Saturn, 2 plus 9 plus 5, regroups to 7. And Jupiter at 11.86 regroups to 7. I have 3 sevens. 7, 7, 7. Very interesting. And it tells us it's going to happen on December 21st, 2020. When I look at that number, that date, and I reduce it, it's 10. So I have 777 and 10 on December 21st, 2020 is the number of completion. All right, so what does that mean? 777 is known as the lightning flash of creation. It's the flaming sword. And the person to the right, my right, Alistair Crowley.
Oh boy.
So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'll just be able to whet your appetite so that you can get an understanding of how this stuff could possibly be working. 777 is the sum of the paths, the lightning flash of creation that travels along the tree of life. 777 is the house of God, the house of Horus. Remember, I said before, it all goes back to the Egyptian mysteries.
Right.
777 represents spiritual consciousness in a physical human being, whereas 666 represents spiritual entities incarnated as beasts of the earth. Horus was the king who restored order after it was overturned by Set, and who raised Egypt up from chaos to harmony. So we hear it all the time. From chaos, they bring order. Order from chaos. I found this piece interesting. Spiritual development is accomplished through the reciprocal action of initiation and ordeal. We're all going through ordeal right now. Masks, shutting things down, many people are not working, having a hard time making ends meet, and so on. The initiation is an influx or inspiration of wisdom. This new awareness changes our horizons in the world. The ordeal, necessitated by the shift of consciousness, causes us to integrate the spiritual lessons of the initiation into our worldly lives. What remains is the capacity to cope with spiritual energies that are more refined and more powerful to cause change than we could handle before surviving the cycles of initiation and ordeal. So, what that means is we're supposed to become stronger. We're supposed to become stronger spiritually, higher levels of consciousness. Many people will refer to it as the duality that we experience in this reality. If you take the Kabbalah, the 10 Sephirot, and 9/11, I'll talk about 9/11 in a little bit, and you turn it on its side, you have 1x, x1. Roman numerals, 1x, 9, x1, 11, 9/11. Okay? The Sephirot are 10 emanations or illuminations of God's infinite light as it manifests in creation. On my shows, I talk a lot about 9/11 events, why 9/11 is very important. 9/11 is considered by the elites, by the controllers, as a date of war, whether it be physical war or psychological war. So here are some dates I pulled up. I'll read them. 9/11, 1941, groundbreaking ceremonies of the Pentagon. There's your war. September 11, 1958, Great Britain performs atmospheric nuclear tests at Christmas Island. 9/11, 1962, the Illuminati declare war on Christianity. This is sourced from the book called The Memoirs of Billy Shears. And I'm sure there are many Christians here who would question whether there's a war on their faith. That war was started on September 11th, 1962. 9/11, 1971, Nikita Khrushchev died a mysterious death while under house arrest. 9/11, 1973, Chilean President Salvador Allende killed in a brutal military coup. 9/11, 1986, the U.S. performs nuclear tests at the Nevada test site. 9/11, 1991, George Bush Sr. gives his New World Order speech. 9/11, 2001, we have our 9/11 event here with the Twin Towers. 9/11, 2007, Russia tests the father of all bombs. 9/11, 2012, the U.S. consulate in Benghazi is attacked by terrorists. 9/11, 2013, the UN Security Council receives alleged proof of chemical weapons used by Syrian militants from Russia. These are not happy moments. So we can see, and there's many, many more of these. I just picked some here so that I can illustrate it. More 9/11. This comes from a friend of mine, Richard Balducci, who's been on my show. He's an expert in the occult. The scarab beetle is a symbol of enlightenment going back to Egypt, back to the Egyptian mysteries. And if you take the beetle's arms here and here, we have two X's. The double X's are representative of Baphomet. And then to the right of the slide, you can see I have the sigil of Lucifer, the seal of Satan. And then when you turn the sigil of Lucifer and the seal of Satan on its side, you can see the two yellow X's I put there. Look at Google Play. Google Play is the top portion of the sigil of Lucifer and the seal of Satan.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So there should be no question where their philosophy, where their spiritual beliefs lie. Coronavirus, COVID-19, is encoded with 9/11. 9/11 events are planned to implement major transformational change. As soon as it was announced, they came out with coronavirus and COVID-19, I did the numerology. It's Pythagorean numerology. Coronavirus is 11, which is a master number in the occult, and COVID-19 is 9. 9/11. So COVID-19 coronavirus was planned to be exactly what it is, a major transformational event, a 9/11 event. Black Lives Matter and BLM are also coded with 9/11. Black Lives Matter regroups to the master number 11, and BLM, the acronym which they kept using over and over and over again in the media, regroups, reduces to 9. 9/11. The third 9/11 event that they kicked off was recent, and it was on September 29th of this year when they had the first presidential debate, we can call it that, between Trump and Biden. September 29th, 2 plus 9 is 11, 9/11. So what I have been telling my listeners, and in discussions I've had with people, we have the trifecta this year. Coronavirus, COVID-19, 9/11 event, BLM, Black Lives Matter, 9/11 event, and then they kicked off the first presidential debate coded with 9/11.
Yep.
The mask is an occult ritual.
Yes.
People who are wearing masks are participating in a ritual. They are participating in occult magic.
Yep.
A mask is an ancient and powerful magical mediator among the worlds of the living, the dead, and the spirits. While the mask is on, the wearer is no longer completely himself or herself, but shares his or her identity with that of the mask. The wearer cannot go beyond the bounds of the mask itself and is transformed only during the wearing of the mask. Transformed. We're talking about transformation. When the mask comes off, the wearer must return to ordinary reality. The mask connects its wearer to archetypal, universally present powers residing within the collective consciousness, and this comes from Jungian psychology. Carl Jung.
Nice.
Almost done.
Well done.
So signs and symbols rule the world, folks. Not words, not laws. They make us think words and laws rule the world. That's for us. That's for the profane.
Right, right.
Earth is a stationary plane, but the globe has occulted meaning. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. We must transcend duality. We must get out of binary debates and paradigms. We have to transcend. We have to move above it. Learn the signs and symbols. The controller's methods are cloaked in occultism. Once you learn them, even at a basic level, you'll start to have a much greater understanding of what's going on. Decoding brings knowledge. Knowledge is power. As I mentioned, COVID-19, coronavirus, is a 9/11 event. In alchemy, it's referred to as the Negredo. It's the chaos stage. That's what we're going through, the chaos stage. The mask is part of an initiation ritual, entering into a new age, entering into the age of Aquarius. And what they're looking to do, they're going to go to a different part of alchemy referred to as albedo, or illumination. This is what they believe. There is a fundamental change underway in our reality. Make no mistake about it. A fundamental change. And all we need to do is take a look at all the people, friends, family, who just do what they're told. Wear a mask,
Yep.
self-quarantine.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
As Mark mentioned, people in this room and others who are not here, we have to continue to fight and push forward because we're the sane ones.
Right.
Okay?
Right on.
All right. So as I went through my trek, what I learned, that is, we have to play the entire field. What does that mean? Again, anything worth knowing is a lie, so we must pursue the truth. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. This reality is designed to be what it is. We came to experience it. It's a classroom. And we're at a time where our souls will gather tremendous amounts of experience, learning, and growth. And what the soul learns, the soul never loses.
Right.
We keep it.
Right.
We keep it. We never lose it. This is an individual journey, first and foremost. In the truth community, many times we get lost in this whole collective consciousness stuff, the communities and so on and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to do your inner work first. You have got to be strong first and foremost.
All right, man.
Ask yourself, why are we here? What is our purpose? What are our lessons? And a community or a collective is only as strong as its individual members. This is why the controllers continue to push collectivism. They don't want strong individuals. Strong individuals who can free think, strong individuals who are resourceful are going to put a crimp in their day. And that's why they have so many people focusing on the collective. We must strike a balance between the physical and the spiritual aspects of our existence here. Too many people invest in the physical world. Way too much. That's what I was talking about before. We must transcend it.
Awesome, dude.
And it's important to play the entire field. It's 100 yards, it's not 50 yards. The little diagram I put here, it shows a bunch of people on one side of the field, that's the physical world. And there's one person in the spiritual. It's just to show that many people spend way too much time on the physical part of the field, the first 50 yards. We've got to play the whole 100 yards.
Right. Yeah.
It's very, very important. So we have to transcend the matrix as much as we can going forward. We've got to get out of the weeds and always seek truth. That's it.
Mike Williams.